1. The marketplace nightmare. In the vast digital landscape of social media, where connections are made with the tap of a screen, there exists a dark underbelly lurking within the shadows of the Facebook marketplace. This is the chilling tale of the marketplace horror incident that shook a small town to its core. It all began innocently enough when Sarah, a young woman in search of vintage furniture for her new apartment, stumbled upon a listing for an antique dresser on the Facebook marketplace. Intrigued by the photos and the seemingly reasonable price, she messaged the seller to inquire about purchasing the piece. Within minutes, she received a response from a user with the name The Collector, offering to meet her at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town to complete the transaction. Despite the unusual location, Sarah's excitement over the prospect of scoring a bargain outweighed any concerns she may have had. As she arrived at the warehouse, Sarah's heart pounded with anticipation, her eyes scanning the darkened building for any signs of life. But as she stepped inside, a sense of foreboding washed over her, the air heavy with the stench of decay and neglect. With each step she took, the shadows seemed to lengthen, and the silence grew deafening, until she could hear nothing but the sound of her own footsteps echoing through the cavernous space. And then, just as she began to question her decision to come, she saw it, the antique dresser standing alone in the center of the room like a sentinel guarding a dark secret. As Sarah approached the dresser, she noticed something strange. Etched into the wood were intricate symbols and sigils, their meaning lost to time. But before she could ponder their significance, she heard a noise behind her, and she turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows. It was the seller, clad in tattered robes and bearing a haunting resemblance to the figures depicted in the symbols on the dresser. His eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and his voice seemed to reverberate through the very air itself as he spoke. "You've come seeking treasures from the past," he intoned, his voice sending a chill down Sarah's spine. "But be warned, the price you pay may be greater than you could ever imagine." Terrified, Sarah tried to flee, but the door slammed shut behind her, trapping her within the confines of the warehouse. With a sinking feeling in her heart, she realized that she was not alone. Something dark and malevolent lurked within the shadows, waiting to claim her soul. And as the darkness closed in around her, Sarah knew that she had stumbled upon something far more sinister than she had ever encountered on the Facebook marketplace. A nightmare from which she may never awaken. 2. The marketplace stalker. In the bustling online marketplace of Facebook, where buyers and sellers connect in search of goods and bargains, there lurked a predator hidden amidst the listings and messages. This is the chilling tale of the creepy guy in the marketplace who sought to trap unsuspecting women in his web of deceit. It all began with a simple listing, a vintage camera being sold by a user named John the Collector. Intrigued by the item, Sarah, a photography enthusiast, messaged the seller to inquire about purchasing it. Little did she know that her innocent inquiry would lead her into a nightmare she could never have imagined. As Sarah exchanged messages with John, she found him to be charming and personable, eager to make a sale and seemingly trustworthy. But as their conversation progressed, she began to notice subtle red flags, comments that seemed overly familiar, questions that crossed boundaries of personal space, and a persistent insistence on meeting in person rather than completing the transaction online. Despite her growing unease, Sarah agreed to meet John at a local coffee shop to inspect the camera in person. But as she arrived at the designated location, she felt a sense of dread wash over her, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. John was waiting for her, his demeanor friendly, yet strangely intense. As they sat down to discuss the sale, Sarah's discomfort only grew, as John's questions veered into inappropriate territory and his gaze lingered on her with an unsettling intensity. Sensing danger, Sarah made an excuse to leave, but John's demeanor turned dark and threatening. He blocked her path, his eyes flashing with malice as he revealed his true intentions, to trap her within his twisted fantasy, to possess her against her will, to make her his prisoner in the dark depths of his depravity. Terrified, Sarah fought back with all her strength, screaming for help as she struggled to break free from John's grasp. And as the other patrons of the coffee shop rushed to her aid, John fled into the night, disappearing into the shadows like a wraith. But the nightmare was far from over for Sarah, as she realized with horror that she had narrowly escaped the clutches of a predator lurking within the seemingly safe confines of the Facebook marketplace. And as she vowed to never let her guard down again, she knew that the memory of that creepy guy would haunt her for the rest of her days. 3. The Widow's Web. In a quiet village nestled amidst rolling hills and lush greenery, there lived a widow whose beauty belied the darkness that lurked within her heart. This is the tale of the widow who ensnared young men in her web of seduction, leading them down a path from which there was no return. The widow, known to the villagers as Eveline, had lost her husband under mysterious circumstances years ago. Since then, she had lived a solitary existence, her home shrouded in secrecy and rumor. But beneath her demure facade lay a hunger for companionship that could never be satisfied. One by one, young men from the village began to disappear, drawn to Eveline's home by whispers of her beauty and allure. They would enter her abode willingly, entranced by the promise of passion and pleasure, never to be seen or heard from again. As the disappearances mounted, the villagers grew suspicious, their whispers turning to accusations as they sought to uncover the truth behind the widow's dark intentions. But Eveline remained elusive, her charm and cunning shielding her from suspicion as she continued to lure unsuspecting victims into her trap. Among those ensnared by Eveline's web was a young man named Thomas, whose handsome features and kind heart made him the perfect target for her seduction. Entranced by her beauty and the promise of forbidden love, he fell under her spell, surrendering himself to her whims without hesitation. But as Thomas grew closer to Eveline, he began to sense the darkness that lurked beneath her captivating exterior. Strange noises echoed through the halls of her home, and whispers of long-lost lovers drifted through the air like a haunting melody. Driven by a sense of unease, Thomas began to investigate Eveline's past, uncovering secrets that sent shivers down his spine. He discovered that she was not the loving widow she pretended to be, but a creature of darkness who fed on the souls of the young men she ensnared. Determined to escape Eveline's clutches and warn the villagers of the danger lurking within her home, Thomas made plans to flee under the cover of night. But as he attempted to leave, Eveline's true form was revealed, her beauty fading away to reveal the twisted creature beneath. With a hiss of fury, Eveline lunged at Thomas, her claws extended and her eyes burning with malice. But Thomas fought back with all his strength, breaking free from her grasp and fleeing into the night, leaving behind the darkness that threatened to consume him. As dawn broke on the horizon, Thomas returned to the village, his heart heavy with the knowledge of the widow's true nature. And as he warned the villagers of the danger lurking within Eveline's home, he vowed to never forget the horrors he had witnessed and the narrow escape from the widow's web that had spared him from a fate worse than death.